It's one hell of an adventure. There are daredevil explorers braving treacherous rapids, crocodile attacks, even a fatal ambush by bloodthirsty bandits. There are disasters, setbacks, amazing escapes. And most spectacular of all, there is the Nile, the longest, wildest, most mysterious river in the world. For centuries, explorers have tried and failed to discover its true source, where it actually begins. Now, a new expedition. 2 Kiwis and an Englishman on an epic journey. More than 6,700 kilometres through 5 countries, quite literally into the heart of darkness. A journey that will rewrite history. This is the longest river journey in the world, breathtaking and treacherous. For more than 6,700 kilometres, it winds through Africa, past ancient cities and people untouched by time. Its wildlife is fearless and its waters wide.
Just being here, you can feel the force of the mighty Nile. I'm just about on the equator in Uganda. Behind me, due south, is the massive Lake Victoria, historically the source of this river. 6,000 kilometres that way, due north, is Egypt, where the river runs out to the sea. There's so much history attached to the Nile that to challenge it would be brave. But that's exactly what 3 explorers have done, claiming their discovery will redraw the map of Africa.
It's an enormous task. No one's ever done it.
No, but that's one of the reasons why we took it on. It was the challenge to actually ascend the Nile from sea to its longest source, which obviously no one had ever done.
It was a monumental challenge. Englishmen Neil McGregor and New Zealanders Cam McClay and Garth McIntyre would ascend the entire length of the Nile through 5 countries. They would travel beyond Lake Victoria 700 kilometres further than any explorer in history and electronically map every metre. 80 days of high adventure.
When I first saw the Nile, it was very emotional. I think I'd never envisaged it to be anywhere near as beautiful as it is.
I joined Cam McClay on the Nile shortly after he finished the expedition. For Cam, who runs a rafting business here in Uganda, the experience was a boyhood dream come true.
No other river in the world has had such a profound effect on human history. And without the Nile, there would be no Egypt.
With much hoopla, Neil, Garth and Cam's journey began in a sea of red tape. Their inflatable Zapcat boats weighted with bureaucrats, though not enough to dampen the excitement.
We're about to head up towards Rashid and then on towards Cairo, up through Egypt, Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda to the ultimate source of the Nile, the world's longest river. Yeah!
Pushing against strong currents and officialdom to cover 280 kilometres a day through Egypt, pit stops for extra fuel and heavy negotiations were frequent.
We left behind a folder of paperwork about that high in Egypt and crossed into Sudan with no paperwork and no escorts. There was no one. We were on our own. And it was a wonderful feeling, but it was quite daunting.
Armed with only their video cameras, the 3 friends entered a strange and different world.
Look at that.
In southern Sudan, they stumbled across ruins at Jebi Bukal from the Upper Egyptian Empire.
We had no one to pay an entrance fee to, we had no one to tell us which was which, and so we scaled up the pyramids and we explored them in our own time and stood in this desert and thought, this is absolutely amazing.
Their first true endurance test was navigating the Sudd, the largest swamp in the world and a graveyard for mariners past.
For a bath?
The Sudd covers thousands of square kilometres, a maze of narrow channels with reeds standing 4 metres high. The men had nothing solid to stand on for a week, and insatiable malarial mosquitoes made sleep impossible.
2 nights ago we had a miserable night on Lake No, where we just slept under mosquito nets, and there were so many mosquitoes they actually what appeared to be forcing their way through the actual nets, and we were bitten to death. Last night we set up our tent arrangement, and you can see what we saved ourselves from being bitten last night.
To get out of the Sudd, locals advise they follow the drifting water hyacinth coming from Rwanda. But Cam had a combination of very old maps and the latest technology.
And I can zoom in.
So you've used technology from the 19th century right through the 21st.
It's incredible because the most detailed maps of these areas were done in 1876. So we used these very old maps and combined those with the most modern technology from our laptops, downloading satellite images, and then finally the GPS, which at any one time could give us our position.
Beyond the Sudd, in deepest Sudan, the Dinka, the tallest race on earth, appeared along the shoreline.
And these figures just rose up from amongst these white cattle, these dark figures, completely black, and these grey figures covered in ash and mud all through their hair. We were quite intimidated by them, and they were certainly intimidated by us. Eventually we started interacting with the children, doing little dances on the raft, and the children were dancing back and laughing, and then we spent 2 hours wandering amongst them.
So this is life on the river.
There's life on the river. You have to be awake because, you know, the river's dynamic. It's moving all the time, and if you're concentrating on a pod of hippopotamus over there, you can get stuck on a rock in the middle. And that's often what we were doing.
Let's get off the rock, Cam.
Okay.
Cam Maclay is one of the best whitewater rafters in the world. But even he was in trouble travelling against the fast current in rapids with 3-metre waves.
How dangerous can these rapids be, Cam?
They can be very, very dangerous. Not only is there a possibility of drowning, but there's crocodiles. Look, I'm going to have to concentrate here, Pete. In South Sudan and in Uganda in particular, crocodiles and hippos were everywhere.
You must have felt very vulnerable at times on the river.
Oh yeah, at times we felt very vulnerable, and we felt like the boats were very, very small.
The sections of river too rough to navigate, they simply packed up and hiked around. But to travel beyond the impassable Murchison Falls in northern Uganda, Neil McGrigor devised a cunning plan. He built a FIB, a flying inflatable boat, basically a motorised hang glider with a raft attached.
Dangerous or mad?
Well, that's for you to say, but it was dangerous.
Taking off from a Nile River runway full of hippos, crocs, rocks and rapids, Neil flew 16 trips carrying equipment over the falls until he saw Cam's boat capsized in the rapids below. Trying to locate him from the air, Neil lost control of the FIB and crashed into the cliff.
Then there was this huge explosion, and you know, my heart missed a few beats, and I thought for sure that he was dead. By the time I got there, the fib was upside down, there was strong smell of petrol, and he was actually standing up beside the fib, and I couldn't believe it.
You know, it could have been very much worse, because all that happened was that I broke my leg.
The party was now stranded in the jungle at the foot of the biggest rapid on the Nile. Cam called a friend who lived nearby, Steve Willis, who offered to rescue them. The next day, they loaded everything into Steve's Land Rover for the drive to safety. But hidden in the grass, watching them, were rebel gunmen from the Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA. So it was a road like this you were driving along?
It was very much like this. We were driving along, the bullets started hitting the car. They were coming from nowhere. The grass was so high, we couldn't see. There could have been half a dozen, there could have been 10 guns. There were so many bullets.
Under fire, Scott Willis veered off the road into a ditch. It was every man for himself. Cam fled into the big game park. Barefoot, he ran and ran.
I kept thinking as I started moving through the grass, you've got to be like a leopard. They move quickly, they move stealthily, and nobody can see them.
With his broken leg, Neil could only crawl a short way before he was captured. The rebels then forced him to loot the vehicle.
They made me get down off the vehicle and kneel on the ground, and I realised this was the point when I was most likely to be shot. And I remember distinctly saying, "Oh no," and just amazingly they turned around and left without a word.
They spared your life?
Yeah. And I can only think they'd run out of bullets, because nobody can believe that I was spared under those circumstances. That just doesn't happen.
Searching for the others, Neil found the body of Steve Willis lying nearby. He'd been shot dead trying to escape. A friend's been killed. You've been spared your life. You're out in the middle of nowhere. How are you still making rational decisions at this point?
I don't know. The body is amazing, and I did have a satellite phone, and I thought, well, it had to be in the bottom of the Land Rover, and I went straight there and looked and found it. Switched it on, switched our GPS on, and effectively made that call.
Garth McIntyre emerged from hiding with a bullet grazed to his head. Then, with the body of their murdered friend on board, the team was airlifted to safety, knowing they couldn't continue the expedition. Finally, Cam, who'd run for more than 30 kilometres, was rescued by the army.
I know how close we were to being killed that day, and the hard thing for me to live with is what happened to Steve, because of his coming to assist us, because of his selfless offer of assistance.
tunnels, which were no more than 2 foot high, which our pack kept getting caught up on. I ended up with calluses on my knees from crawling so far, and we were down to doing no more than sort of 200 yards in an hour. That's how difficult it was.
In the end, it was a little unromantic. The furthest source of this majestic river was just a trickle of water from a muddy hole. But what an extraordinary achievement.
It was a huge dream, and we exceeded all our wildest expectations and what we came across, the challenges we faced, what we saw. And so to get to the end, we were absolutely delighted that we could have done it, but we were disappointed that it was finally all over.
After 80 days, Neil McGrigor, Cam McClay and Garth McIntyre had discovered that the Nile is 6,718 kilometres long, 117 kilometres further than previously thought. The source to see celebrated as new kings of the Nile.
To actually find something new in this day and age was just the most amazing feeling.
So do you feel like you're 21st century explorers?
If exploration is finding new items or places within the planet, that's exactly what we've done.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes, segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.